Because he made fun of Girl Scouts, he was let go from Men's Health, dismissed from Stuff magazine for employing dwarves to disrupt a business meeting. After circulation fell under his direction, his contract at Maxim UK ended without renewal. Greg Gutfeld had been fired from every significant publication he had ever worked for by 2006. He had been dismissed as unemployed by the media establishment. Fox News then called with an odd offer: host a show at 3:00 a.m., a time period so lifeless that executives joked that the only people who would watch would be nursing moms and speed dealers. No one anticipated that he would survive for 3 months. Today, more people watch that same rejection than Colbert, Fallon, and Kimmel all together. Without ever appearing on late-night television, he rose to become the unquestioned king of late night. However, it wasn't by accident that they went from serial failure to television domination, building a cult following among insomniacs, meeting a Russian model in Portugal, getting fired again, and rewriting the rules of American talk shows were all part of it. We must go back. We must go back to the beginning of the pattern of destruction in order to comprehend how a man who was unable to maintain employment for more than 2 years became the most watched personality in his time slot. On September 12, 1964, Gregory John Gutfeld was born in San Mateo, California. Jackie, his mother, brought up the kids in a Catholic home. Little Greg went to Junipero Serra High School, a Catholic all-boys school that also produced baseball great Barry Bonds and NFL quarterback Tom Brady. In the middle of the 1980s, he enrolled in the University of California, Berkeley. This decision would have unanticipated consequences for a future conservative media star. He was not converted by Berkeley's liberal atmosphere. He was repelled by it. Later on, he would clarify that his exposure to liberals made him conservative, while his exposure to conservatives made him libertarian. He saw that the worst aspects of both groups had one thing in common: they were moralizing and teaching others how to live. He refused to participate in the purity tests conducted by any tribe. In 1987, Gutfeld received a degree in English. In 1987, Gutfeld received a degree in English and began working as an intern at the American Spectator, doing errands for the magazine's notoriously challenging editor, Tyrell E. Mtt. He gained insight into the inner workings of conservative media from the experience. However, Gutfeld wandered into the field of men's lifestyle publications, since magazines paid badly. He began his career as a staff writer at Prevention magazine, a health-focused magazine, when he started using drugs and alcohol at what his coworkers called a prodigious rate. He would be followed for years by the party lifestyle. He eventually made his way to Men's Health, which dominated newsstands in the 1990s as the go-to source for fitness advice and abs. Gutfeld became editor-in-chief by 1999. At 35, he was in charge of one of America's most prosperous men's magazines. Then he lost his most prosperous men's magazines. Then he lost his job. Depending on who told the story, different official explanations were given. Gutfeld had written articles. Gutfeld had written articles making fun of his own boss, cat lovers and Girl Scouts. The parent corporation of Cat Lovers and Girl Scouts, the parent corporation of the magazine, determined he was not worth the hassle. His career trajectory was not worth the hassle. His career trajectory was described as both amazing and dismal by one media outlet. He repeatedly climbed to the top of the ladder and then fell all the way back down again. But failure did not teach Gutfeld to be cautious. He intensified the turmoil. His next destination was Stuff magazine, a magazine devoted to women, technology, and all the things. A magazine devoted to women, technology, and all the things that young men were supposed to be interested in. Gutfeld increased readership from 750,000 to 1.2 million, turning it from a mediocre title into a circulation powerhouse. By pushing boundaries that marketers accepted, since the statistics continued to rise, he completely unhinged it. Then the event that would define his career in magazines occurred. What Gives a Magazine Buzz was the title of a conference hosted by the American Society of Magazine Editors. In April 2003, Gutfeld chose to provide a verbatim response to the query. Using a casting agency, he brought in 3 short-limbed actors and told them to cause as much disruption as they could during the meeting. Their loud chomping of potato chips was audible. They let their phones to ring over and over. While industry executives attempted to talk, they engaged in boisterous chats. They were expelled by security. The New York Times. The New York Times published the story. Gutfeld was dismissed right away. That's where most careers would have ended. He certainly appeared to. He would never longer be touched by any major American publication. He had gained notoriety for all the wrong reasons. For Greg Gutfeld, however, being dismissed from America was insufficient. He made the decision to banish himself to a completely different continent. Gutfeld had a new beginning in London in 2004. Apparently no one in the UK had heard about the dwarf event, and the British version of Maxim required an editor-in-chief. Or maybe they had and didn't give a damn. Anyway, Gutfeld gathered his belongings and headed over the Atlantic. He had to travel to Portugal for a company conference during his first week of work. The publisher brought together editors from all across the world to debate strategy, and Maxim has editions in more than 30 countries. After checking into his hotel room, Gutfeld started to get comfortable. Then he saw the woman in the room next to it. Tall and dark-haired, Elena Musa was employed by Maxim Russia as a picture editor. Before switching to magazine work, she began her career as a runway model. She instantly attracted Gutfeld's notice at the conference in Portugal. Later on, he characterized the experience as instant recognition. He just knew it when he glanced at her. That's my wife. Elena didn't want to interact with him, which was the issue. Gutfeld pursued her for 3 days with what he acknowledged was stupid perseverance. The short American editor continued to show up everywhere she went, but she remained aloof, contemptuous, and disinterested in him. At last, he asked her out on a real date. Yes, she replied. Between them something changed. Yes, she replied. Between them something changed. Elena moved from Russia to London to be with him in a matter of weeks. Anyone seeing from outside would have thought the relationship was moving too quickly. They were married in a modest civil ceremony in New York after only 5 months of dating. There weren't many wedding pictures. They both favored seclusion over media attention. In his 2008 book, Gutfeld wrote about Elena and how, rather than hiding in their apartment and watching reality TV, she encouraged him to really enjoy London. She provided him with stability that he had never experienced in bars or magazine offices. However, his career would not be saved by steadiness. The outcomes of Gutfeld's time at Maxim UK were unsatisfactory. Under his direction, circulation decreased. The business decided not to extend his contract when it ended in 2006. Now at 41, he was unemployed once more, recently married, and had no clear future. The pair moved to New York City. As a fashion stylist, Elena started her own profession and eventually worked for magazines like Design Scene, Loishal, and Venice Magazine. 2017 saw her graduate from Parsons School of Design. However, both Gutfelds were beginning anew in 2006. Greg accepted an odd job that appeared to be a career suicide. He joined the Huffington Post as a blogger. Everything that Gutfeld detested about leftist media was embodied by the Huffington Post. However, Gutfeld saw an opportunity to instigate trouble from inside, and founder Arianna Huffington welcomed conservative voices on her platform. His post gained notoriety due to what some described as inspired lunatic ridicule of other bloggers. He made fun of Arianna. He criticized other contributors at 0824. Every comment area became a fight because of him. Andy Levy, another blogger, paid attention to one of those comment areas. After exchanging jabs, the two realized they had similar sensibilities: satirical, dark, and ready to insult anyone with a good joke. Online sparring would soon grow in importance. Because someone at Fox News was watching while Gutfeld was irking liberals online, late in 2006 the call came in. Fox News intended to start a late-night program. Did Gutfeld care? He answered right away and candidly. He had no money. He would go to any lengths. Fox took him to meetings in New York. It was an odd pitch. The network sought to fill a void in viewership. The show was originally slated to air at 2:00 a.m. when the majority of Americans were asleep. Gutfeld joked that the majority of Americans were asleep. Gutfeld joked the intended demographic included prisoners. The intended demographic included prisoners, nursing moms, and speed dealers. Inmates sent them several letters. On February 5, 2007, the program debuted as Red Eye. Gutfeld anticipated weeks of meticulous planning and rehearsals. Rather, executives informed him that they would begin in 3 days. In the green room, the squad practiced. Everyone was drinking, even the cameramen. It was less like a television show and more like a house party. Red Eye made its appearance around 2:00 a.m. 09:54. After viewing the initial episodes, Fox executives concluded that the subject was too edgy for the time slot, moving it even later to 3:00 a.m. was their solution, where fewer people would complain about it. Now, before his show attracted any viewers, Gutfeld had been demoted inside it. But during those quiet hours of the night, an unforeseen event occurred. Red Eye gained a cult. An unforeseen event occurred. Red Eye gained a cult following. The format of the broadcast broke all the rules of cable news. Gutfeld would use ridiculously over-the-top praise to introduce panelists. They talked on anything from pop culture to politics to outright absurdity. There was nothing sacred. There was nothing sacred. Fox News itself began to be frequently ridiculed. The humor was the darkest, most ridiculous, and most different from anything else that was shown on TV. The show's ombudsman is Andy Levy, Gutfeld's sparring partner from Huffington Post. The chosen companion was Bill Schultz, a co-worker from the days of Gutfeld's Stuff magazine. Levy was the deadpan snark machine, and the three developed an odd bond. Schultz portrayed the endearing loser at 11:03, like a cunning ringmaster at 11:03, like a cunning ringmaster. Gutfeld oversaw the mayhem. Jackie Gutfeld's mother started to appear frequently on Red Eye. He said that the joke was that she was old and gave her the title of senior correspondent. During the day, she was supposed to monitor Fox News and provide updates on events. She frequently bemoaned the women's too low skirts on screen. Gutfeld would reply that those skirts were well liked by other spectators. The mother-son bond was depicted on camera in a way that seemed real. Introducing friends to his parents had caused Gutfeld embarrassment when he was younger. As an adult, he realized that those same buddies would rather hang out with Jackie than with him. Audiences reacted favorably to her straightforward genuineness. She encouraged her son in all of his endeavors, even when they were doomed to fail. Red Eye wasn't supposed to work. A performance at 3 in the morning. Topics picked seemingly at random, inebriated cameramen, and a lack of funding had no business drawing viewers. However, the ratings increased her, and a lack of funding and ratings increased her. Had no business drawing viewers. However, the ratings increased. Despite running in the middle of the night, the show started to outperform primetime cable news programs. Then, in July 2011, Fox presented Gutfeld with a more ambitious offer: The 5 Needed Hosts, a brand new daytime program. Every weekday at 5:00 p.m., 5 pundits discussed politics and news. Among those 5 would be Gutfeld. The 5 became well known as the first non-prime show to rank #1 in terms of both total viewers and the crucial demographic of adults aged 25 to 54. The program created television history. Suddenly, instead of just thousands of people, Gutfeld was in front of millions. For over 4 more years, however, he continued to host Red Eye 2 and work on both shows at the same time. The grind has to end. Gutfeld declared in February 2015 that he was leaving Red Eye to concentrate on a new endeavor, the 3 a.m. The aim of the show had been fulfilled. It had demonstrated that Greg Gutfeld could maintain a crowd when no one appeared to be looking. Fox now wanted to use a real-time slot to see what he could do. The Greg Gutfeld Show debuted as a weekly Saturday night broadcast at 1:00 p.m. on May 31, 2015. The format combined elements of a variety show with political satire. Gutfeld gave one-off speeches. He spoke with journalists. Among the regular panelists were professional wrestler Tyrus, whose menacing demeanor contrasted with surprisingly perceptive analysis, and comedian Kat Tim, who contributed a libertarian viewpoint and a keen sense of humor. Gutfeld continued to appear on The 5 every day as the show ran on weekends for 6 years. His viewership grew steadily, and devoted people continued to watch his shows. Broadcast networks' late-night hosts seldom acknowledged him. A Saturday Fox News show was not seen as competition by them. Then 2021 arrived. Fox News declared that the Greg Gutfeld program would shift to weeknights and change its name to simply Gutfeld. At 11 p.m. a new show would premiere. Eastern, In direct competition with Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Stephen Colbert, failure was foreseen by industry observers. How might a news program on a cable network rival that on a broadcast network? How could a conservative comedian draw in an audience that had spent more than 20 years favoring Jon Stewart and his successors? The response came promptly. Jon Stewart and his successors. The response came promptly. Jon Stewart and his successors. The response came promptly. Gutfeld surpassed The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in the ratings by August 2021. Over 2 million people watched the show every night on average, more than any rival on cable or broadcast. The man who began work at 3 in the morning, presently controlled 11 p.m. The king was now the rejected one. The figures continued to prime. The king was now the rejected one. The figures continued to rise. The Five and Gutfeld had an average of more than 5 million viewers at the end of 2021. In a single night in October 2022, Gutfeld attracted 2.5 million viewers, its highest-rated episode to yet. Those figures could not be met by any late-night program. Fox relocated Gutfeld to 1000 p.m. in June 2023, Eastern. As a result of the change, the show was officially removed from the late-night competition. Critics claimed that this was dishonest, and that 1000 p.m. programs that air at 11:30 shouldn't be compared to the 1541 show. The terms didn't matter to Gutfeld. The audience continued to expand because he cared about them. The popularity of the program was indicative of bigger shifts in American media consumption. Late-night programming has become more political, with hosts portraying conservative viewers as the adversary. Gutfeld provided a substitute. He made fun of both parties when they earned it, but the most of the criticism was directed at Democrats. More significantly, compared to polished broadcast productions, his show felt genuine. He was previously dubbed the most dangerous man on TV by the Weekly Standard. In contrast to other media figures, Gutfeld's work was truly subversive, a stink bomb tossed into every American nonprofit boardroom, movie studio, faculty lounge, and mainstream newsroom. He had found his audience by being precisely who he was, a troublemaker who was dismissed from every respectable job he had before landing somewhere that valued chaos, rather than by following trends. No one, not even Gutfeld, could have guessed how the later parts of his story would turn out. Longtime viewers were taken aback by the news he revealed in December 2024. Greg Gutfeld became a father for the first time at the age of 60. Mira, his daughter, for the first time at the age of 60. Mira, his daughter, was born to him and Elena. Gutfeld made the news during an episode of The Five in which he made light of his daughter's remarkable lung capacity and his intentions to teach her 3 languages. After 20 years of marriage, no children had been born. Gutfeld then became a first-time dad at a period when the majority of men his age were considering having grandchildren. Suddenly, the private man who hardly ever talked about his wife on TV had a whole new aspect to his life. His ongoing domination in the workplace coincided with the announcement of the baby. Gutfeld continued to be the most watched show in its competitive set by 2025. He often surpassed 3 million viewers, while his closest competitors failed to achieve 2 million. Someone the industry had written off as unfit for television had changed the late-night scene. Part of the story is revealed by the contrast with his rivals. According to reports, producing broadcast late-night shows costs about $100 million a year. Gutfeld used a small portion of the resources to operate. His program never attempted to equal Colbert's or Fallon's production levels, instead embracing its more modest beginnings. His outlook on failure had turned out to be prophetic. He maintained that getting fired was the finest thing that could happen to a person. People believe their career is gone if they get fired. You always wind up somewhere better in reality. He had repeatedly lived by that concept, using each termination as a springboard rather than a dead end. It was only after the fact that the pattern became evident. Gutfeld was forced to find a setting where his unique skills could flourish with each shot. Men's health desired conformity. Stuff want to be sane. Maxim UK desired an increase in circulation. They didn't want a provocateur who disrupted industry gatherings by hiring dwarves. Fox News. In particular, the 3 a.m. Gutfeld was finally able to be himself, within a time slot that no one was interested in. Elena mostly stayed out, that no one was interested in. Elena mostly stayed out of sight during his ascent. She kept up her fashion career, making sporadic appearances on his Instagram but staying away from his TV shows. It was precisely because she avoided the limelight that their love endured. In 2022, Gutfeld used his connections at Fox News to assist in the evacuation of Elena's mother from Lviv to Poland after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He publicly published the reunion video, one of the few occasions when his personal and professional worlds came together. When Gutfeld was sitting broke at a Chelsea pub in 2006, he was at the peak of his career, and in a position no one could have imagined. The man who made the joke, that his first audience was made up of tired parents and criminals, had created something strong from that base. In addition to Fox devotees, his audience also included more independents and even Democrats who thought the broadcast options were boring. One story is revealed by the numbers. Over 5 million people saw both shows together, with over 3 million viewers each night. Supremacy of the ratings, which compelled CBS to consider whether The Late Show could go on. However, the figures don't explain why it was successful. Somewhere in that sequence of failure and reinvention is the solution. Gutfeld never made an reinvention is the solution. Gutfeld never made an effort to fit in with the industry's expectations. Because he was challenging, pushed boundaries, and refused to control his inclinations, he was fired. He eventually discovered a position where those same attributes were assets rather than problems. Greg Gutfeld demonstrated that occasionally the 3:00 a.m. reject emerges as the unchallenged monarch by discovering a market that desired precisely what he had been providing all along, rather than by altering who he was.